a little bit of basics. Like I said, you can go and look at our 101s. I'll get one after I'm done with this page and Garrett takes over. I will get a link into our 101 organizing 101 workshops where you can really kind of think about how grassroots organizing works. But some grassroots organizing basics. And there's a quote from Howie Hawkins that I think is really important. Do more listening than preaching. And I think that's so important for Greens to understand. By non-voting communities, oppressed communities, we don't need people to come in on white horses and save us. What we need is to be empowered. We don't need someone to tell us what we need. No one knows what we need better than we do. So some key parts of basic green organizing: deep canvassing. The Republicans and Democrats, you hear from them when they send out canvassers right before the election, and then you don't hear from them again. And what deep canvassing is a long-term project where you start by talking to people in your community. You build real relationships, you build real trust, because here's the thing: voters, and especially non-voters in the United States, rightfully don't trust politicians, right? They've been lied to cycle after cycle, year after year. People come in, make promises, get elected, and then the lot of the people on the ground, a lot of the people in our communities gets worse. So they rightfully don't trust us. And the idea that Greens should be able to walk in and say, we've got this amazing platform, vote for us, is kind of egotistical, right? And it's not based on the material reality that there's a rightful distrust of political organizing. So we need to engage in deep canvassing. We need to have conversations over time, multiple talks with the same people. And we're not preaching, we're listening. And our job as organizers, right, is when we're talking to someone, we help make connections. And so when you're talking to your neighbor and they're talking about, oh, I've got this problem, our roads and our sidewalks and our infrastructure sucks. And, oh, yeah, I agree. And then we can start talking about, why does it suck? Right now as the organizer, it's my job to start making the systemic connections up. Right, you're unhappy with the condition of our public works, so let's look at our city budget. Right, and when you look at my city budget and when you look at the city budgets of most of the places in the country, what you're going to find is we spend most of our money on cops. We spend most of our money on the police state, on authoritarian policing policies. And what does that mean? It means that everything else doesn't get what it needs. In my town, about every year, the police department and the public works department put in about the same amount of money in their request for their budget. And what happens is the police department gets 99% of their request, and public works gets 30% of their request. Why do my roads suck? Because we're spending our money on cops, right? There's a direct line to that. Why don't we have better social services in this country? Because we're spending our money on war. We're spending our money on corporate welfare. We're spending our money on it's mismanagement. We don't have a resource problem, a lack of resource problem. We've got a mismanagement problem. And so we have these conversations. We show up, right? When there's a protest in our community of another movement, Greens show up, right? And that helps. Then people see us there. And then when we run for office, they say, hey, those guys show up. I can vote. I should vote for them. And so that that's a big part of deep canvassing. I'm often asked, where to start, and my answer is always your neighbor. Right? When you want to start deep canvassing, walk next door, knock on the door, have a conversation. When you're finished with that conversation, walk to the neighbor on the other side, and then start growing your circle outward. Right? And that's how we need to start. We need to think about a movement versus electoral balance. Right? Sometimes running for office is the best thing we can do. And sometimes, organizing in a movement and applying public pressure is the best thing that we can do. And in a lot of places, one of the most effective ways to get things done is not to elect someone to city council, but to apply, social pressure and public pressure to city council. My favorite story regarding that is I was working as a community organizer, and we were doing a community cleanup and the public works department wouldn't help us get rid of the trash that we were clearing out of alleys. And this was their job, right? We were cleaning up the city streets, and they wouldn't help us. And so we told them, okay, then we'll see you Tuesday at the city council meeting when we dump all of the trash that we cleared in front of City Hall, and we do a press conference about how Public Works wouldn't help us, but we're cleaning up our neighborhoods. And you have no idea how quickly we got a phone call from Public Works. And you can be damn well sure that all of that trash was off of the streets after we collected it before the city council meeting, because they did not want that on the table, right? That public pressure was that it actually got something done. And we can use tools like power mapping, right? If we want to achieve a change in X policy, who can make that change? Who are influential on those people? Who, what media personalities might we talk to? So like I said, go into those organizing 101s and kind of dive in deeper. A couple other really important ideas. It's important to know what we're doing. And in this case, we're using it in advocacy versus mobilizing versus organizing. Advocacy and mobilizing rely on experts and leaders. They're top down. The agenda's set top down. They make organizational decisions, and then they try to mobilize their existing supporters, right? So, that's the case of saying, we want this, come out to this rally. And so it's got to predefine, and Greens should be doing advocacy. Greens should be doing mobilizing. But that is usually where mainstream political organizing stops, right? It doesn't actually ever get to organizing. And organizing is about educating, training, showing solidarity, and helping a community organize itself towards their own goals. So whenever we're doing something, we need to say, is this advocacy, is this mobilizing, or is this organizing? And if we say, oh, this is advocacy or mobilizing, there's not a problem with that, right? That might be the most appropriate tactic to take at the time. But we need to make sure that we're directing things towards organizing. We need to, the largest voting block at almost every election is non-voters, and those are people who need organized, right? They need to be empowered, and they need to be trained. They need political education, and we need to actually go out and bring new people in. Organizing is about bringing new people in, whereas advocacy and mobilizing is about mobilizing your existing base or advocating to power holders. We talked about canvassing and individual recruitment. We need to build relationships over time, over many interactions, organizing towards goals, not just a quick thing where we leave, we talk to you for 5 minutes and walk off your porch and you never see us again. We need open recruitment. We need education events, social events with onboarding opportunities to bring in new members. We need to invite the public to our events and meetings. We need to collaborate with other, with partner organizations. And then, ending up, we need to engage in mass agitation, right? This is your traditional having a rally or having a protest, slogans, printed materials, radio, podcast, social media, all this kind of stuff to make sure your voice is out there. And a lot of this is very, like we said earlier when we were talking about the unique organizing problems of continental organizing, what this looks like in any given community is different depending on the time and the place we're talking about, right? So while we do have national platforms that call for things, how we even achieve those things in each of our unique communities really can differ quite a bit. So that's why Greens kind of keep those high level values that guide us, but we have a lot of flexibility in what that looks like as it works out downstream.